but also to recognize where what I would call community of interests lie. So we have things in terms of interests, in terms of building green community opportunities that lots of people are talking about. There's a lot of buzz around that right now. And perhaps the community of interest and the way that we can build those connections in those industries aren't necessarily within our local economies. So I think it's important to realize and appreciate where our, how to best utilize resources that we have, and when we have to reach outside of our local communities to scale something up and to make something a reality. So pass it up to the group.
Thank you. I guess without reiterating what's already been said, I would build upon some of the comments of Kim with regard to the labor force. I think there's, they say that the only things for sure are death and taxes. Well, you're certainly assured that people get older. And when you look at the demographics, and we're starting to look at certainly my area, which is Prince Edward Lennox and Addington, has a significantly older population. What opportunities and what challenges does that present? But when you start to look at the breakdown of their educational levels, and something that I'm sure we'll get into discussion when we get into the topic of the creative economy, is what is the educational levels? Diane from Renfrew mentioned today about a literacy rate of I think 34%. It's pretty hard to be a member of the creative economy if you can't read. It's also pretty hard if you don't have access to the internet. So a lot of challenges about infrastructure, but these education is a basic. We don't have to look for complexity. People have to be able to read. I guess I'd also make some comments just on a different angle towards models of cooperation. We've made considerable strides in Eastern Ontario with the Ontario East Economic Development Commission, working together as a collective. I'm very proud of the Eastern Ontario CFDCs work together with a network. But even within these organizations, I guess as with any organizations, there's always challenges and different views. And there's nothing like money, I guess, to make you cooperate when you have resources to allocate. But it's not working as well as it could, and perhaps it's because it's very difficult to, when you're talking about direct benefit, if somebody's paying for something, they expect to get the direct benefit. It's tough to get them to spend the money for a general good, and that certainly is understandable. But the only way we're going to succeed is if we look at regional economic development, in my view. And I guess that's all. Just confine my comments.
Sure. Well, again, being at the end of the line, I get to pick up the slack here. I guess one of the things I'd like to build on a little bit is having been involved in investment attraction for a number of years, I think there has been a real stigma attached to Eastern Ontario in terms of labor force and the willingness to travel long distances to get to their employment opportunities. I think there's a stigma attached in regards to transportation and border crossings, and I think that's something we need to work on in terms of branding. The other thing too, and I know Kim certainly mentioned this in terms of the broadband infrastructure, but I think we have a lot of issues with our municipalities as well in our roads infrastructure, whether it be bridges or water and sewer capacity. I think that's something that needs to be addressed as a unique hurdle for Eastern Ontario as well.
Okay, well, that's pretty depressing. So, no, but I'm just thinking, yeah, what unique hurdles do we have to overcome? So obviously we have major human and physical infrastructure problems, but are we unique, or are there other communities in Ontario that we can learn from, or the world, or how can we, I mean, surely we can do better than that, in terms of, so let's.
And I can speak now from the very positive side to my experience with the Eastern Ontario Development Fund for the last several months. Premier announced that back in July, and we have been really, really pleased with the quality and the depth of the projects that we've seen come forward from the business community in Eastern Ontario. You do have a lot of very innovative companies doing some very unique and wonderful things. There is a lot to celebrate here, and I think it's been, if nothing else, never mind the good that it's done to the local economy and to those individual companies, but for the people at Queen's Park and for some of the key decision makers to get acquainted with the kind of work, the level of innovation and expertise that is resident in Eastern Ontario. There are really good things to build on here, and so I certainly see my program as having a role in doing that, but I also think that there's opportunities to partner with other regional economic development agencies, whether that's the municipalities, the economic development agencies, the community futures groups, and so forth, to try to build awareness, to facilitate relationships, that people understand where that depth of experience is and generate new ideas and foster some of that. And I think it speaks to Allison's point about entrepreneurship is absolutely bang on. We need to be doing more. You've got a tremendous depth of post-secondary educational institutions in Eastern Ontario. There are smart people with good ideas. Are they sharing those ideas right now? Is there an environment that supports entrepreneurship and the building of new businesses here? For those of you in the audience that are specifically engaged in economic development, the one thing they asked about what works, I would say more and more what we are seeing in this economy is that there are overarching challenges that individual companies are facing, but the answers, the responses to those challenges need to be taken to that individual company. The work that's been done by Canadian manufacturers and exporters on the SMART program, which brings consulting into an individual company at a reduced cost, Eve Laundry and the training money that's available there, things along that line where any one of us can work to help a company move forward and address its specific challenges, whether that's, facilitating group training and driving down costs. That sort of thing is really valuable right now and really, I think, appreciated by the companies themselves as they try to restructure themselves and move forward.
I did want to make something positive as a comment. So I guess the other side of the coin to those 34% of illiteracy, one thing that we're tracking in our community is something we're calling amenity migration. And this is the exodus out of urban areas into rural areas of that sort of 50 plus people, highly educated, highly capitalized, that are coming to our communities to seek quality of life. This human capital resource is something that we're not fully taking advantage of. I'm very fortunate to work for an organization that relies on volunteers as my boss. We have 2 former Canadian ambassadors that are on my board that are resources. I have CEOs of major corporations that have just retired that, again, they might do a little bit of consulting in the city or internationally, but they want to be involved in the community. There are many, many examples of this in Eastern Ontario. When you look at David Dodge, the former Bank of Canada, lives in Eastern Ontario, now connected fortunately to Queen's University, but a cattle farmer. There's many, many examples of people who need to be engaged. So a mechanism that would explain that there's a challenge and a way to engage them, and quite frankly, it's something that the Moynihan Centre does very well, is that linkage between community and challenges.
And again, just on a positive note too, I'd like to add, I think we have some very innovative economic developers working for us here in Eastern Ontario. Through the Economic Development Commission, I know Ann Pritchard is here today from Frontenac CFTC, and she has been leading a business immigration program that is bringing new business immigrants to Eastern Ontario to show that there is life outside the Greater Toronto Area. We've also got Dan Taylor here from Prince Edward, who's leading the creative economy sector. So these are our regional partners working together and trying to bring new innovative initiatives and solutions to these hurdles to our area. So I think that's something that needs to be recognized.
Allison, did you want to add anything?
Just to pick up a little bit on what Craig said about quality of life, I think there's quality of life, and I think that in terms of cost of living, there's also benefits to living in Eastern Ontario that perhaps needs to be promoted somewhat differently. And in terms of developing successful entrepreneurial strategies, I think that there's really great models for doing that. A report was just issued by the Aspen Institute on revitalizing rural economies through entrepreneur development systems, and they talk largely, obviously, about entrepreneurial activity. And I'm not going to go into all the details now, but they talk about coaching as a key tool in helping develop entrepreneurial spirit. So the value of just making entrepreneurial training available and